All right, now that we have read the article, I want you to go back and reread it. But this time, while you're rereading it, I want you to annotate the article. And there's two things that you're going to write when you annotate it. You're going to look for the whys. So you're going to annotate the whys with a W. And the whys revolve around why the teenagers joined the war. So anytime you find a reason, it could be the line, it might be a two-word phrase in a sentence, you can circle it. I don't care how you annotate it, as long as that you can find it the best way. If you want to put a box around the phrase or the entire sentence, or if it's just everything in that sentence off to the side, put a W. So anywhere you find the whys the teenagers joined, put a W. Then I also want you to kind of go through and find out the what happened. Those are the WH. You're going to use the WH to find out what happened to the teenagers after they joined the war. So that's when you're going to look at how did it affect them emotionally, physically, socially, and I've given some examples here. So for like one reason you might find for the why is in paragraph 7. There's 3 of them in there. Why the teenagers joined the war was because of patriotic fervor. They sought escape from grim conditions at home and wanted adventure. So those are 3 reasons in paragraph 7, and you can use these. It's not cheating to use mine. I was just making sure that you had an example. And those 3 things, I would have a W around them. And then if you look at paragraph 1 of the article, one of the reasons, what happened to teenagers after they joined the war, they learned the true meaning of fear. So I put a WH by that. So this might take you about 20-25 minutes, depending on your own, or if you want to go through and use 2 different colors, highlighters, colored pencils, you annotate however you want. Just know that 1 should be for the whys and 1 should be for the what happened. All right, now that you have annotated and you figured out your whys and your what happens, I want you to make sure that you understand this definition of monotonous. And if you would, go ahead and add it to your vocabulary list or add it to your notes. Monotonous is an adjective, and it means not interested because of having to do the same thing over and over. So maybe you're not interested in your bell work because it's the same every day, or it's the same idea. So even though the practice is monotonous, the learning shouldn't be. So you might think bell work is a little boring because it's the same thing every day. Sometimes you guys think school is monotonous or because it's boring and dull. You do the same things over and over and over again, or it feels like it. So hopefully we can break up the monotonous with this. So that should maybe help you a little bit with some of the stuff that we're looking in the article. All right, so I want you to go through your article again, and we're just going to look at the first paragraph. And I want to kind of discuss or have you answer this question: how did the expectations of the teenagers who volunteered compare with the realities of World War I? So if we look at that first paragraph and then look at the first sentence, war confers many things on the boys who pick up a weapon to fight. What does that sentence really mean? You might need to know what confers means, so you might want to do a little digging. And then I want you to look at paragraph 14. What was the pressure from society that motivated teenagers to join the fight in World War I? So if it wasn't their own desire to join, what pressures from society that kind of made them feel like they needed to or should, or what things did they have to prove? And then the last thing I want you to kind of jot down in your notes is, what does the military's treatment of the teenage soldiers reveal about society at this time? That one is kind of a big one. And hopefully you've got something along the lines of the military had rules that people under 19 were not allowed to join the military, but they did not try very hard to enforce those rules. Eventually, the government decided to try and take all those under 19 out of the front lines, but they allowed the boys to stay in if they wished. So, like, how desperate was the military for people, or what was the point of having rules if they weren't going to enforce it? And then you look at the treatment of Abby. Hopefully in your notes you've got something about the treatment of Abby, how it reveals that society valued fighting in the war more than it valued the boys' lives. Because what's the end result? What do they want? They want to win, right? They want to stave off. So what are you putting above someone else's life? Victory, right? Okay. What I want us to do with looking at evidence, and we're going to call it experiment with well-chosen evidence. Want you to take a moment, and I want you to go back to the handouts that we've been using for the first couple lessons, and it was handout 1B, the Peace President Goes to War. And I want you in your notebook to create a T-chart. And in that T-chart, I want the left column to be types of evidence, and on the right column to be titled evidence. And it should look something like this. So I've got types of evidence on my left, evidence on my right. And then in your box for types of evidence, I want you to list the ones that I have down here. We've got fact, statistic, definition, brief explanation of description, first person account, argumentative claim, or opinion. And the reason I'm having you do this is because these are all the types of evidence that you would ever use whenever you're gathering evidence for anything that you ever write or trying to argue or make claims about. And you always want to keep these types in the back of your head and your mind as you're writing and as you're collecting things for answers or reasons or whatever it is that your task might be. And kind of while we're going through today's activity, I want you to always think about which precise type of evidence best suits their purpose. And remember, precise, precision, the accurate. You always want accurate evidence. No fake news here. We want precise, accurate evidence. So open up to Peace President Goes to War. And I want you to reread paragraph 12. This is the one where it talks about isolationism. And then I want us from the list there that you've got under your types of evidence, we're going to figure out which type or what type of evidence does the author use to support his purpose of explaining American support of isolationism. And if you don't have your notebook or can't find the right paragraph, this is the paragraph. The United States watched the situation with growing concern. Many Americans felt a strong sympathy for France and England because of historic or cultural ties, yet some Americans of German, Irish, and other ancestry supported Germany. Woodrow Wilson urged the country to remain neutral. Indeed, many citizens favored isolationism for the United States, believing that we should keep to ourselves and let Europe work out its own problems. That idea soon was shattered by a terrifying new weapon unleashed by the Germans, the U-boat. And remember, isolation, if you're in isolation, you're alone, right? You're singled out, you're away from everybody. So in this one, again, your task was to choose from the list of your T-chart what types of evidence does the author use to support his purpose of explaining American support. And this one, the author provides a definition of the term directly after he introduces the word, right there where it says believing that we should keep to ourselves and let Europe work out its own problems. So in this one, it would be, if you're looking at your list, a brief explanation or description. That's the fourth one that's listed there. All right, your exit ticket after today's activity is to write down which experience you think was most significant to British teenage soldiers. So you need to do that in your half sheet.